Jai Shri Shri Radha Madhava Ki Jai. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Janitai Gaura Premanande. So we will read from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, the chapter is called The War, and we continue from where we stopped last time. One night, Abhay had an unusual dream. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta appeared before him, beckoning. He was asking Abhay to leave home and take sannyas. Abhay awoke in an intensely emotional state. How horrible, he thought. He knew it was not an ordinary dream, yet the request seemed so difficult and unlikely. Take sannyas. At least it was not something he could do immediately. Now he had to improve the business, and with the profits, he would print books. He went on with his duties, but remained shaken by the dream. In 1945, the war over and India still in turmoil under British rule, Abhay saw a good opportunity to make his business more successful. In Lucknow, 600 miles from Kolkata, he rented a building and opened his own factory, Abhay Charan De and Sons. It was a major investment requiring 40,000 rupees to start, and he began on a larger scale than ever before. Also, according to law, to ensure that he was not dealing in the black market or misusing chemicals, he had to employ 3 government inspectors. Yet despite a high overhead, he established a good market, and his products were in demand. He closed his small operation in Kolkata and concentrated on the Lucknow business. Although the building was known locally to be haunted by ghosts, Abhay had not been deterred. But when he began his operations, some of the workers came to him frightened. Babu, there is a ghost. Abhay then went through the entire building chanting Hare Krishna, and after that, there were no more complaints of ghosts. On November 13, Abhay wrote to his servant Gauranga, mentioning some of his difficulties in Lucknow and asking him to come there to help. In this letter, Abhay spoke bitterly of his wife, Radharani, and children. Gauranga Prabhu, please accept my obeisances. I received your letter dated 7th. Due to lack of time, I could not reply in time. I stay here alone with some servants. If I leave now, then I have to close everything down. Due to my leaving once and closing the business, I have lost about 10,000 rupees, and the goodwill has also been affected by my enemies, and my enemies have increased. That is why I'm fighting, practically staking my whole life. I am staying here all alone in the middle of so many difficulties, not for nothing. That's why I was writing to you repeatedly to come here. As soon as you receive this letter, show it to Dubra. Take at least 10 rupees from him and come here. When you come here, I will make arrangements to send money to your home. What's the point of holding you back with an excuse that there is no servant or maidservant? I tried to serve them enough by keeping servants, maidservants, and cooks. But up until today, they have not become attached to devotional service. So I'm no more interested about those affairs. When you come here, then I will go to Kolkata. If I see that they are interested about devotional service, then only will I maintain my establishment there. Otherwise, I will not maintain them anymore, being a quilt for me. Bring a quilt for me. Yours, Abhay. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. So Srila Prabhupada is very upset about his family not being interested in devotional service, and he's not interested to maintain them any longer. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Jai. So we will read today from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 20, which is entitled Lord Vishnu's Appearance in the Sacrificial Arena. And we will read today text 25. Sautama shloka maham mukhachuto bhavat padamboja sudakananila smritim punarvismrita tattva vartmanam Uyoginam navitaratyalam vare. Sautama shloka mahan mukhachuto bhavat padamboja sudakananila smritim punarvismrita tattva vatmanam Kuyoginam no vitaratyalam vare. Sautama shloka mahan mukhachuto bhavat padamboja sudakananila smritim punarvismrita tattva vatmanam Kuyoginam no vitaratyalam vare. Uttama shloka mahamachita Madamboja sudakananila Punarvismrita tattva vartmanam Uyoginam no vitaratyalam vare. Sautama shloka mahamukhachuto bhavat padamboja sudakananila smritim punarvismrita tattva vatmanam Yoginam no vidaratyalam vare. Word for word translation. Saha, that. Uttama shloka. O Lord, who are praised by selected verses. Mahat, of great devotees. Mukkachutaha, delivered from the mouths. Bhavat, your. Pada amboja, from the lotus feet. Sudha, of nectar. Kana, particles. Anilaha, soothing breeze. Smritim, remembrance. Punaha, again. Vismrita, forgotten. Tattva, to the truth. Vartmanam, of persons whose path. Kuyoginam, of persons who are not in the line of devotional service. Naha, of us. Vitarati restores. Alam unnecessary. Varai other benediction. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace of Bhakti Naravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. My dear Lord, you are glorified by the selected verses uttered by great personalities. Such glorification of your lotus feet is just like saffron particles. When the transcendental vibration from the mouths of great devotees carries the aroma of the saffron dust of your lotus feet, forgetful living entity gradually remembers his eternal relationship with you. Devotees thus gradually come to the right conclusion about the value of life. My dear Lord, I therefore do not need any other benediction but the opportunity to hear from the mouth of your pure devotee. Purport. It is explained in the previous verse that one has to hear glorification of the Lord from the mouth of a pure devotee. This is further explained here. The transcendental vibration from the mouth of a pure devotee is so powerful that it can revive the living entity's memory of his eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In our material existence, under the influence of illusory Maya, we have almost forgotten our eternal relationship with the Lord, exactly like a man sleeping very deeply who forgets his duties. In the Vedas, it is said that every one of us is sleeping under the influence of Maya. We must get up from the slumber and engage in the right service, for thus we can properly utilize the facility of this human form of life. As expressed in the song by Thakur Bhaktivinoda, Lord Chaitanya says, Jeev Jago, Jeev Jago. The Lord asks every sleeping living entity to get up and engage in devotional service, so that his mission in this human form of life may be fulfilled. This awakening voice comes through the mouth of a pure devotee. A pure devotee always engages in the service of the Lord, taking shelter of his lotus feet, and therefore he has a direct connection with the saffron mercy particles that are strewn over the lotus feet of the Lord. Although when a pure devotee speaks, the articulation of his voice may resemble the sound of this material sky, the voice is spiritually very powerful because it touches the particles of saffron dust on the lotus feet of the Lord. As soon as the sleeping living entity hears the powerful voice emanating from the mouth of a pure devotee, he immediately remembers his eternal relationship with the Lord, although up until that moment he had forgotten everything. For a conditioned soul, therefore, it is very important to hear from the mouth of a pure devotee who is fully surrendered to the lotus feet of the Lord without any material desire, speculative knowledge, or contamination of the modes of material nature. Every one of us is kuyogi because we have engaged in the service of this material world, forgetting our eternal relationship with the Lord as his eternal loving servants. It is our duty to rise from the Kuyoga platform to become Suyogis, perfect mystics. The process of hearing from a pure devotee is recommended in all Vedic scriptures, especially by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One may stay in his position of life, it doesn't matter what it is. But if one hears from the mouth of a pure devotee, he gradually comes to the understanding of his relationship with the Lord and thus engages in his loving service. And his life becomes completely perfect. Therefore, this process of hearing from the mouth of a pure devotee is very important for making progress in the line of spiritual understanding. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitantam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Tamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vancha Kalpatarupyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaiva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Sa Uttama Shloka Mahamukhachuto Bhavat Padamboja Sudakananila Smritim Punarvismrita Tattvavatmanam Uyoginam Novitaratyalam Vare. So Maharaj Prithu, he is praying at the sacrificial arena right in front of the Lord. The Lord has appeared in his Lord Vishnu form. And so Prithu Maharaj, he says, my dear Lord, you're glorified by the selected verses uttered by great personalities. Such glorification of your lotus feet is just like saffron particles. When the transcendental vibration from the mouths of great devotees carries the aroma of the saffron dust of your lotus feet, the forgetful living entity gradually remembers his eternal relationship with you. Devotees thus gradually come to the right conclusion about the value of life. My dear Lord, therefore, I don't need any other benediction but the opportunity to hear from the mouth of your pure devotee. So we were very fortunate because His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, he left the comfortable spiritual life in Vrindavan, and on the order of his spiritual master, he went to the west. He crossed the ocean on a boat. He experienced many hardships, but because he was determined and he was sent on a mission by his Guru Maharaj, by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to save the world, he succeeded in arriving in America. And in the early days, when Srila Prabhupada was preaching, my Guru Maharaj told me that I should remember this, that Srila Prabhupada's movement, this ISKCON movement, has not taken off until Srila Prabhupada sat under a tree in the Tompkins Square Park and hasn't started chanting. So Srila Prabhupada was sitting under the tree and chanting the holy names of the Lord, crying to the Lord. And because he is a pure devotee that we're hearing about here, then the saffron particles, which is very poetically talked about, prayed about here by Prithu Maharaj, those saffron particles, they were spread all over the world, and they're still flying everywhere. So Srila Prabhupada, in his explanation of how to chant the holy name, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, the famous, as explained on the record, this chanting Hare Krishna. It does not require any previous qualification, and it automatically springs from the spiritual world. However, Srila Prabhupada is saying there that this chanting must be heard from the lips of a pure devotee, because hearing it from the lips of a non-devotee is just like drinking a milk that was touched by the poisonous serpent. it will have a poisonous effect. And of course, there are many verses in the Srimad Bhagavatam that are glorifying the hearing process, the hearing from pure devotees, and it describes how the devotees themselves, the pure devotees, they're absorbed in that hearing. In the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Kapila says, Satan prasangam mama virya samvido bhavanti hrit karna rasayana katha. There is this channel between the ear and the heart, hrit karna channel, special channel that affects the heart. And we can see how people are basically, it says that the association, well, show me your friends and I'll be able to tell what you are like, because it's hearing. We're constantly hearing from our friends, we're hearing from whatever we watch, or so whatever the world we surround ourselves with, that determines our consciousness. And the seed of consciousness, of course, is in the heart. That's the soul. The soul is there. So if we're hearing the sound vibrations that are not pure, then our consciousness becomes polluted. And then here we are in the material world. And Srila Prabhupada is very mercifully not bringing himself, but he's speaking even of himself. He says that every one of us is kuyogi. It doesn't say all of you are kuyogis. It says every one of us, because we have engaged in the service of this material world. That means we give our oral reception to all sorts of material sound vibration. Prahlad Maharaj, in the 5th canto, 18th chapter, he is praying very nicely. By associating with persons for whom the Supreme Personality of Godhead Mukunda is all in all, one can hear of his powerful activities and soon come to understand them. The activities of Mukunda are so potent that simply by hearing of them, one immediately associates with the Lord. So because we say that Krishna is non-different from his name, from his activities, from his pastimes, etc. So when a pure devotee speaks of Krishna, then we know that that sound vibration is non-different from Krishna. And of course, we're hearing about Srila Prabhupada, we're hearing from Srila Prabhupada, we're hearing from Srila Shukadev Goswami, we're hearing from Prithu Maharaj, we're hearing from the Lord himself on the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita and Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, etc. So we're very fortunate. We have quite a lot of association. We just need to take time. So for a person who constantly and very eagerly hears narrations of the Lord's powerful activities, the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, in a form of sound vibrations, enters within the heart and cleanses it of all contamination. On the other hand, although bathing in the Ganges diminishes bodily contaminations and infections, so he compares, Prahlad Maharaj compares that, yes, Ganges and other holy rivers, they're very purifying, but it takes a long time of taking bath regularly and on special days, etc. But just from once hearing from a pure devotee, then the heart can be purified. What's that? Lavamatra sadhusanga sarvasiddhi. Lavamatra. And Lavamatra is described as just 1/11th of the second. It's the time that takes for an eye to blink, right? So it's the blink of an eye. In the blink of an eye. But then I have heard an interesting realization of one devotee. He was saying, the blink of an eye of whose? Lord Brahma's blink of an eye is quite a long time. And the idea behind that realization was that it's not that we just come and hear someone for 1/11th of a second and we say, okay, this is it. No, actually we continue. This 1/11th of a second can continue eternally. No problem. It can be stretched out. Yeah. Then the residents of the heavenly abodes, they are praying. They're saying that intelligent person does not take interest in a place, even in the topmost planetary system, if the pure Ganges of topics concerning the Supreme Lord's activities does not flow there. So a very nice explanation how the sound vibration is like the river, like the pure Ganges that is flowing. And so the intelligent persons, they don't live anywhere else but on the banks of that river, means that they constantly hear the spiritual sound vibrations. So that intelligent person does not take interest in the if the pure Ganges of topics concerning the Supreme Lord's activities does not flow there, if there are not devotees engaged in service on the banks of such a river of piety, or if there are no festivals of Sankirtan Yagya to satisfy the Lord, especially since Sankirtan Yagya is recommended in this age. So intelligent persons are not interested to stay anywhere else. Then in the 10th canto, there is a wonderful, famous verse. Nivrita Tarshayeru Pagiya Manat, Bhavo Shadar Shotra Mano Biramat, Kautama Shloka Gunanu Vadat Puman Vinageta Pashugna. Glorification of the Supreme Personality of God, it is performed in the Parampara system, that is, it is conveyed from the spiritual master to disciple. Again, this Shiksha, Vani, it's instructions, it's the sound vibration. That's why we have a very special situation in ISKCON, because we know that the sound vibration comes from Lord Krishna, comes to Lord Brahma, from Lord Brahma it comes to Narada, from Narada it goes, etc., 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 and it comes through Guru Parampara all the way into our ears. Pretty amazing, no? So that's parampara of the spiritual sound vibration also. And this is actually a very interesting point. One time, I remember I was hearing a class, and there was a description of how one person, one of Prabhupada's disciples, he was a student of philosophy, and his teacher, professor, was asking him, "What is the Vedic mechanism?" And so this Prabhupada's disciple, he came and Prabhupada, and he asked him, what is the Vedic mechanism? Srila Prabhupada answered, the Vedic mechanism is Guru Parampara. That's the Vedic mechanism. And if you think about it, the Vedas are generally meant for, yes, for us to be in this world and act in appropriate way, but that appropriate way or that action, if we stick to the Vedas, will actually elevate us slowly. So that's the mechanism. Vedic mechanism means to fall down, and by the Vedas, by the Vedic mechanism, we're supposed to get out of here. So Parampara, Guru Parampara is the real Vedic mechanism. It's the spiritual sound vibration that uplifts us from this material world all the way to spiritual world. And so it is said in that same verse that such glorification is relished by those who are no longer interested in the false temporary glorification of this cosmic manifestation. Descriptions of the Lord are the right medicine for the conditioned soul undergoing repeated birth and death. Descriptions of the Lord are the right medicine for the conditioned souls undergoing repeated birth and death. Therefore, who will cease hearing such glorification of the Lord except the butcher? So Pashugnath, the one who is either killing himself or killing others, killer of the soul sometimes. Amazing. And then there is a very interesting question that Parikshit Maharaj asks Shukadeva Goswami in the 87th chapter of Krishna book or Srimad Bhagavatam. He asks, it's the prayers of the personified Vedas, and right in the beginning of that chapter, Parikshit Maharaj, he asks Shukadeva Goswami, he says that how are the Vedas, or how is this sound vibration, which is ultimately, or which it seems to be material, it's produced by the vocal box, it's produced from the thoughts that are material of the material mind. The mind is material, the intelligence is material. So how is that this how is it that this sound that comes can actually be transcendental, how it can describe transcendence, and how it affects others transcendentally. So, and then Shukadeva Goswami says, oh yes, this question was actually asked by Narada Muni of Naranarayan Rishi, who told him a story of how ages ago, millions and millions of years ago, there was a conversation between Narada Muni and the 4 Kumaras, and how they described that, the answer basically to that question. And Srila Prabhupada says that ultimately the question is whether the Lord is personal or impersonal, which is really interesting. And he explains that because the Lord is personal and all the energies are emanating from him or his energies, then if he desires so, then even the so-called material sound vibration that is produced by the material body, mind, etc., can actually be spiritualized. So that's the answer to that question. And Krishna confirms this, yes, in Bhagavad Gita 2:24. Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir, Brahmagno Brahmanahutam, Brahmaevate Nagantavyam, Brahma Karma Samadhina. He says that basically a person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, if he is performing some devotional service, I'm paraphrasing, then whatever he is offering to the Lord, the offering itself, the process of offering, and the person who is offering all the sound vibrations, etc., they all become spiritualized, they all become Brahman. It's like the ladle, the fire, the ghee, the person who is offering, the mantras that are chanted, they all become spiritual by nature. Srila Prabhupada gives example of an iron rod. You take an iron rod, you put it in the fire, it becomes hotter, 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 it becomes like fire, and it acts like fire, so it's no longer iron anymore. So it becomes fired up. So that's also how we, as say, the sparks of the Supreme Personality of God, are the parts and particles that are kind of what you call it, no longer shining, that we are amongst the ashes of this material world, dug into the ashes of this material world. When we associate with fire, we again become fired up. And so Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is explaining that whoever can say the name of Krishna, they are very special personalities. And Rupa Goswami, of course, in the Nectar of Instruction, he also speaks that verse, Krishnete Yasya Manasagati, that whoever is chanting the holy name, then we should offer them respects in the mind. So, and then he says that some people who are chanting like this, they might become really interested in chanting, and they start chanting more regularly, and they take initiation. And then Sri Rupa Goswami says that one should offer obeisances to such a person. And then, of course, the Uttama Adhikari, or the great personality, Rupa Goswami says he's Nindaji Shunyam. He is not interested, and this is the quality of this person. He's completely uninterested in criticizing others. He becomes very pure by chanting seriously. So by hearing, of course, hearing and chanting seriously, he becomes devoid of propensity to criticize others. And so then the heart of such a devotee completely melts. It's described in the 11th canto by one of the Yogendras that by chanting the holy name, the Supreme Person, one comes to the stage of love of Godhead. Then the devotee actually is fixed in his determination and his identity as the eternal servant of the Lord, and he gradually becomes very attached to a particular name of the Lord, a particular form of the Lord. And as his heart melts in ecstatic love, he begins to dance and laugh, and he doesn't care for the outsiders, and he can just, in the middle of Queen Street, just be in a dhoti or a sari and chant and dance, no problem. And it says that not every elevated personality manifests those qualities, that he's going to be falling on the ground and being in ecstasy and chanting and dancing, etc. But Sripad Madhvacharya says that the the two qualities of very advanced devotees are always there. So this is how we know from whom to hear. Where are the particles, saffron particle? And so he says there are two symptoms. One of them is that the person is very steady. You cannot fake steadiness. If someone's doing service for like 30, 40 years, that is one of the symptoms that he is an advanced, or he or she is an advanced devotee. And the second symptom is mukhya prasad. Whatever comes from his mouth is meant for the benefit of others. And again, this is identical to having no hatred or having no envy towards any other living entity. So whatever comes from his mouth is meant for the good of others. There's no envy. And of course, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his Shikshashtakam, he gives this progression. First verse, he's glorifying the holy name, glorifying the process of chanting the holy name. And in the second verse, he says that yes, there are so many powers. You invested all your powers in this holy name, but I have no attraction for them. And then he basically explains why I have no attraction. And the reason is, again, I have this envy, right? He says, that we should be more tolerant than a tree, more humble than a straw on the street, and we should be able to give respect to others without expecting any respect for ourselves. And in that way, we can continue chanting the holy name perpetually, all the time. So that, again, is something that no hidden motive in the heart. And then, of course, Nadanamna Janamna Sundarim, he explains that there is no motive. I just want pure devotional service, unconditional service, life after life. And then, of course, a very interesting situation is that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu prays, Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitamam Vishamay Brahmam, that my dear Lord, son of Nanda Maharaj, somehow or other I have fallen into this material world. Please pick me up and place me as one of the dust particles at your lotus feet. What is the dust particle? That's the saffron particles that we're talking about. So a devotee actually wants to be amongst all those saffron particles on the lotus feet of the Lord. And of course, when the devotee is on the feet of the Lord, they're completely fixed, they're super attached to the Lord. But they have this Sankirtan yagyas there. And so they're all shaking up. And when they're shaking, all this dust is flying everywhere also. It's sharing Krishna consciousness, sharing this transcendental sound vibration with the rest of the creation. And I would like to end with the beautiful descriptions of how Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur talk about chanting and hearing the holy name. So Srila Rupa Goswami has composed a famous verse, everyone here, I hope, knows it. I do not know how much nectar the two syllables Krish and Na have produced. When the holy name of Krishna is chanted, it appears to dance within the mouth. We desire many, many mouths. When that name enters the holes of the ears, we desire many millions of ears. And when the holy name dances in the courtyard of the heart, it conquers the activities of the mind, and therefore all the senses become inert. I have one good friend. You probably all know him also. His name is Vishnujan Prabhu from Harinam Ruchi. He says, I have only one question. And that question is, which one is more powerful, Krish or Na? Nice question. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's poem, Anuraga Vali, the wine of loving feelings, beautiful, expresses the same point in a wonderfully expanded way. This is really beautiful. Please hear. It was the first time actually I found this. I've never heard this. Please give me millions of bodies and millions of mouths in each body. By your mercy, place millions of tongues in each mouth. O Lord, may your millions of transcendental qualities dance on those tongues. What is the use of a soul that doesn't have millions of bodies? What is the use of a body that doesn't have millions of mouths? What is the use of a mouth that doesn't have millions of tongues? What is the use of a tongue that does not chant your millions of names? O Lord, may I perpetually have hundreds of bodies, and may each body have thousands of mouths. May each mouth have millions of tongues, and may each tongue chant millions of your holy names. O Madhava, wherever and whenever anyone chants your names and pastimes at any time, there may I, with millions of ears, eternally drink your nectar. May I have millions of ears and millions upon millions of tongues. Then, O Lord, I will eternally and happily hear and chant your pastimes. May I have millions of ears, millions of eyes, millions of hearts, and millions minds, millions of tongues, hearing about, seeing, and embracing the ocean of your handsomeness. I will drink its sweetness. May I have millions of eyes, ears, noses, tongues, and chests, so that I may continually taste the nectar of your handsomeness, your sweet sounds, your sweet fragrance, and your embrace. May I have millions of feet to go to your side. May I have millions of hands to serve you. May I have millions of intelligences to teach others that service. Oh Lord, please grant me these boons. Huh? So beautiful. We get inspired. So I have also personal experience, obviously, about chanting. I'm hearing this and experiencing the saffron particle. I remember one time in Sri Vrindavan Dham, the 24-hour kirtan temple hall. The kirtan is always very nice there. Of course, there are many devotees there that are serving in that way. And the atmosphere is generally very pure and transcendental. But there are categories or gradations in spiritual also, in spiritual world. So one time I remember there was kirtan going on and it was nice evening. But then His Holiness Kadamakananda Maharaj, he said to sing. And I remember, I don't know what it was. I don't necessarily think it was his voice, as in like the vocal cords, because those boys or the other devotees who were singing there, they have really nice, beautiful voices. But I remember that the room just filled. The atmosphere became thick with spiritual. I could just feel it just going everywhere. It was just incredible feeling. And I believe this is what this is talking about. And I remember so many times also expecting our Guru Maharaj, Swami Krishna Goswami Maharaj, to come. And I would have so many anxieties and worries and this and that. And I remember particularly one time, it was not so long ago, but we haven't seen Guru Maharaj personally, live, for a long time, like 2-3 years because of COVID. And so he came to Helsinki, Finland. So we went there. It was the first time we saw him after a long time. And I remember he was also giving Bhagavatam class in the morning, and I haven't seen him before. He just came in, he sat down, and I was there ready with Mridanga right there. And he started singing. And I remember how that voice just filled me completely with spiritual energy. It's just nothing else. It's just incredible. And I remember how in those particular circumstances, I was just thinking, let it be eternally, let it be eternal. I just want to be here. I just want to be part of it. So this is part of it. And of course, Srila Prabhupada it's all by Srila Prabhupada's mercy. We're hearing his voice regularly. We're hearing his realizations from the purports, his ecstasies. And the proof that these saffron particles of Srila Prabhupada's realizations, his transcendental ecstasies, is all of us and all those people who, by reading his books, by coming in touch with Srila Prabhupada's pure sound vibration, spiritual sound vibration, they also become devotees. It's the transformative experience of the heart. That's why. Hare Krishna. I'll stop here. Any comments, questions? Or Hare Krishna. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Langai Sabhajam Navinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Yagya ki jai.